if you have the money, I think we found our new favorite AMD FreeSync monitor. Hey everybody, welcome to PC Perspective. I'm Ryan Schrout. Today we're looking at a new FreeSync monitor, relatively new FreeSync monitor, the Acer XR341CK. Now that collection of letters, there's actually a whole bunch more at the end, but that collection of letters presents you this. It is a 21:9 aspect ratio display, 34 inches diagonally. It has a resolution of 3440 by 1440, so it's an incredibly high resolution display, about 30% more pixels than you get on a 2560 by 1440 monitor, and obviously you get that in the extra width that you see here. It is a 75 hertz display, so it does have a maximum refresh rate of 75 hertz, which is great because that actually extends your FreeSync range. It makes using Windows better than if you had this on a 60 hertz display, and you don't see any color degradation from that increase in refresh rate, which is really nice. Real quick, let's run through the design of this, right? A lot of people question our look at designs of monitors because you're really looking at the front of it all of the time. But I think in this one, being that it's one of the 21:9 aspect ratios, it's a little bit more important. First of all, the screen is a kind of a semi-matte finish. It's mostly matte, not a lot of gloss to it, not a lot of reflection on it, which is great. In my opinion, that's what I prefer. It does mute the colors slightly, but I think it's better not to have overhead lights or if you have a window in your room, no reflections there. It is a very thin bezel across everything, but it's still obviously visible there, especially with the screen is on. As you can see here, we're looping some Metro last light for you. All the controls are on buttons on this side. They're a little bit hard to use in that there's no designation on the front of the panel what the buttons do. So it's easy to kind of accidentally hit the wrong button. I accidentally turned the monitor off a couple of times while playing with the on-screen display. Speaking of the on-screen display, there's a ton of options in there for color correction, for controlling overdrive, for setting a whole bunch of other stuff in there. The OSD is really robust in this Acer display. On the back of it, it is the opposite of the front. It's very glossy on the back, so if you worry about fingerprints, if you worry about dust on the back of your monitor that's maybe facing out in your office or in your home, that might be something to be concerned with. The stand is really nice in terms of its design. I think it looks really cool. It's kind of got this minimalist style to it, very kind of a flat chrome or a flat metal finish. The display itself has the ability to height adjust as well as angle adjust, which is nice. That's a big plus for a monitor this size, to be able to get it in the position you want. It does have a VESA mount on the back. It has two 7-watt speakers on it, which sound better than I expected them to. Maybe it's time for me to raise my expectations about what monitor speakers could do. Obviously, if you're a gamer, you're not going to want to play on that exclusively. You're going to want speakers or headphones for it. But for normal video watching or regular kind of productivity uses, the speakers on it are actually pretty decent. The other thing that I like about this, it might be hard to see in this shot, but we have other shots of it, is that it has accent lights it's basically an LED strip underneath the monitor that can change colors. You can do red, green, blue, white, and then you can actually change it to a breathing pattern, a flashing pattern, or a kind of a alternating pattern where the LEDs go back and forth. Reminds you of maybe a Cylon or a Knight Rider implementation, if you will. And it's actually pretty cool. I don't know if it's necessary for anything, but it definitely adds a little bit of style and touch to the display. So that's kind of the design, and if you look at the display itself in terms of its color, out of the box, it was actually pretty good. Contrast was a little off, the grays were a little bit off. After a calibration, it looks stunning. We'll supply a calibration file in our full review over at PCBer.com if you do happen to buy this and just want to apply it and you don't have the tools and don't feel like going through the software setup to actually do the calibration. So the monitor, Acer claims, is capable of 100% sRGB, and I have no reason to disagree with that, especially after a proper calibration process is done. So designers and video editors and productivity users and entertainment users will enjoy kind of the color aspect of this panel, I think. Obviously, what most people are here to discuss or to learn about are the gaming implications of this monitor. It is a FreeSync monitor, so it does support variable refresh between the frame rates of about 33 frames per second and 75. I think they probably claimed 30 to 75 in our testing, where we have the ability to step down in frame rates and look for tearing or stuttering. 32 or 33 was where that lower limit was. So again, the same applies here for all FreeSync monitors. When you're inside that range, the variable refresh experience is awesome. It worked flawlessly. When you are above that or below that is when you start to get into the complications of, are you going to enable VSync or are you going to disable VSync, and what are your preferences in that way? So nothing really changes, although the range of 33 to 75 is pretty good. And considering the last time we saw a FreeSync monitor of this aspect ratio, it was 48 to 75. This is a pretty drastic improvement in that area. Also important for gaming, this monitor has proper overdrive implementation. If you have a FreeSync configured setup, their settings are off, normal, or extreme. Normal and extreme both kind of produce the same result. It definitely improves the ghosting that you would see with overdrive disabled. Interestingly, if you have an NVIDIA setup and you want to use this monitor, or you have an AMD setup that doesn't support FreeSync, either you don't have the right driver, don't have the right cable, you don't have the right graphics card, overdrive performs a little bit differently. The jump from normal to extreme is very noticeable in those setups, where you actually start to see some negative ghosting, some inverse. You'll see some dark lines kind of following some of the animation patterns, if you will. Which is interesting because that means this monitor is actually treating FreeSync enabled platforms versus non-FreeSync enabled platforms differently in terms of overdrive. That being said, I don't see a whole lot of people buying this for gaming purposes that aren't going to take advantage of FreeSync, so they aren't going to have a FreeSync enabled system. So I don't really think that's really too big of a concern. For productivity users, 75 hertz refresh rate is great. It makes kind of the mousing, Windows interface stuff just a lot smoother than 60 hertz. And the fact that you get this huge, wide range of pixels here. 3440 by 1440 gives you a ton of room to do stuff on, and you can get easily 3 full-size vertical windows of browsers across this and have a little bit room to spare. We had like 2 PC perspective windows and a Twitter window up there, kind of standard designs, and it worked great. You could have all of your communication stuff on one side. You could have, there's a huge Excel sheet across this if you wanted to. Productivity-wise, there's a lot of benefit to having an ultra-wide display like this. It does support picture-in-picture, picture-by-picture modes through multiple inputs, right? So if you want to have, it would be 1720 by 1440 screen. You can have 2 of those from 2 different machines, right? If you wanted to hook up your PC to this side and your laptop to this side, you can absolutely do that if you want. And it can do picture-in-picture as well, even with 2 21:9 aspect ratios, so you can have a smaller 21:9 aspect ratio in the corner if you wanted to do that, if that seemed useful for really any purposes. Speaking of inputs, I didn't mention this at the beginning, this does have quite a few inputs. You've got your DisplayPort, you've got mini DisplayPort input, you have 2 HDMI inputs, one of them capable of MHL, and then you have actually a DisplayPort out throughput that kind of allows you to daisy chain DisplayPort displays. So more or less there's kind of like an MST implementation inside this monitor, which is nice. If you happen to have a secondary DisplayPort monitor, you don't have to run cables both to the PC. You can just run one to here and then run a second one directly to the Acer monitor itself. And one other point, I will complain about this cable length. The cable that they include, first of all, doesn't have the locking mechanism on the cable, which is important because of the design of the back of this. Wouldn't allow you to, it's a pain in the butt. But they do supply with the right cable to make it easy to install and uninstall the cable, but it's only like a 4-foot length cable, which if you have any kind of desk height issues or your PC, you like to keep it a little bit further away from your desk, it's gonna be a pain. You may not be able to reach and you might have to buy a third-party cable. I don't know why, that seems to be something that people are doing recently, is including 4-foot cables instead of 6 or 8-foot cables with their monitors. Pricing on this, $1,039 as of today on Amazon. That's obviously pretty expensive for a display. It is very expensive in terms of other FreeSync monitors and even other G-Sync monitors that are out on the market, but this is a fairly unique design. You get the ultra high resolution, 3440 by 1440, 75 hertz refresh rate, FreeSync capability, really good color reproduction, I think a very good stand design, and $1,000 is a lot to invest in a monitor. And although you don't need, it's not a 4K display, so you don't have to worry about the performance implications as much as you would on a 3440 by 1440, so there's some advantages there. You don't have to have as high of a GPU setup in order to kind of compensate for the amount of pixels that you need to render at. It's still a lot to ask. I do think that there will be some users that really want to dive into the 21:9 aspect ratio. They love the idea of the high resolution, the variable refresh rate. If you're a Fury or a Fury X or a 390X gamer, this will be a perfect complement to that hardware. And I think we'll find a lot of people will like the design and the features enough to add this to their system. So make sure you go to PCPro.com. I've got a full review written up with more photos and discussion about what I liked and what I didn't like, about maybe some of the design aspects. And so make sure you check that out if you want more information. For now, we'll be back with more reviews of variable refresh monitors in the not too distant future, guys. I'm Ryan Shrout. Thanks for watching.